And then we'll certainly have more time too for any other HeadLight questions. So I would like to share my screen. Can you all see my screen now? I wanted to just highlight one thing. We have this HDOT project creation request form that many of you have used to set up new projects in HeadLight. I believe there's a link to it from the wiki as well that Cord has maintained. But we did a few minor updates to this, and I wanted to let you know some other things that may be changing here in the near future as well. So a lot of this kind of top information is unchanged. You put in who you are, your role, and when your project will need to be starting up in HeadLight. There's still places for you to put in exactly what the project name should be, key project numbers, and then there's a place, many of you have already been doing this, where you can put in the project duration. One thing we're working on adding functionally to the progress payments here in the near future is a way to do the working day or calendar day tracking directly within it, or build a workflow around that. So it's not a required field. You'll notice the stars next to required fields here, but this one isn't marked as required currently because it hadn't been actively functioning in the payments so far, but that's something we will be adding. So please, if you can, try to put in what your project's calendar or working day duration is moving forward, and we'll make that mandatory once that feature I'm talking about is activated. Beyond that, then, one thing we did add down here after the bid amount and dates are whether or not it is entirely state funded. That's a toggle, so please yes or no. The whole point of that, in the last office hours that I was in on, we kind of presented some of the newer features around automated retention, and that was applicable to state funded projects. Basically, it'll automatically withhold the 5% up of the project amount up until 50% of the contract for those jobs. So obviously, if that type of retention isn't happening on your job, that won't be applicable. So we might, if you put that your project is entirely state funded, we may ask further about that because it's basically a feature we toggle on or off on a project by project basis. Beyond that, the rest of these fields are the same. So you'll have your key project roles that factor into the approvals of change orders and payments down here. So definitely put those in if you have it. And then the only other thing that we have changed or likely is to change in the near future is this template for pay items. So this is just like a empty Excel sheet, and these are the columns of info that we need to accurately set up the contract to run payments successfully. So I've tried to put which ones of these are mandatory for type or type code work item number. This is something that I'm going to present here in a little bit. We're adding the type codes to the contract information so that your progress payments will display for the fiscal group which categories they're a part of. Also, we have added, we want to know if they're participating or non-participating for each pay item, which will be helpful for getting that to automatically show up in your payments. The progress payment form will assume any pay items in your contract are participating unless we specifically tell it in the contract admin app that it is non-participating. So those are a few minor changes that have happened to that setup form. And there might be one or two more coming. I'll try to highlight those when those changes happen. I guess any questions on project setup or that form.
I was
Okay.
just going to add real quick, Craig, that I know looking at that form, there's, a couple of things in there, and I think most people know, but as far as, where do you find like the project number for the project and all that stuff, just look at, the cover sheet of your drawings usually has the precise exact project number. If it's federally funded, it would start with a FAP. Um, look at your special provisions. That's where you would find things like, working day or calendar day, and probably some of the other pertinent information needed in the form. And lastly would be the charge code. I think that one, it's basically the tracking mechanism that HDOT uses to, track their projects. So you would typically have to get that from probably the resident engineer, reach out to them, and they'll be able to help you get that code number if you don't know it.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks for that context. I'm just learning about that stuff myself too. Uh, I did want to show then, this is the contract administration app behind the scenes in HeadLight. We're still managing most of this on behalf of HDOT. Basically at project setup, we'll get all those pay items uploaded into this system with all the relevant cost per units, contract quantities, all that. So that is the key part to making sure the payments work correctly, is getting all this in correctly at project setup. Obviously, if there's an issue with it, we can always work with you to update it. But the part we're kind of adding in now, in HeadLight here, it's called category number. But as Joel was saying, your RE should know those codes for each pay item, hopefully. And this is, I've been working with Cord to uh, we're going to have to clean up many of the existing contracts because let's say you've been working on a project for the past year and a half. We didn't really track this information, and it wasn't in the payments yet. So many of you didn't submit it, or it was inconsistent at times, or maybe we just didn't even put it in, even if it was provided at the time, because it didn't do anything yet. So these are the main fields we're trying to get into the system. I'll show you what that looks like then in the payment itself, so that it will display for your fiscal teams how to pay those essentially. So this won't actually change anything about how you guys need to put in your pay items or create the uh, progress payment forms. I'm on our QA server here, just doing an example. So don't worry, Danilo, if you're watching, I'm not messing with your data. Uh, but I just put in these three arbitrary pay items that I chose and put them into a progress payment. And then within the progress payment form itself, all this stuff should look somewhat familiar to you. Uh, this one has 22 payments to date, so it's got a lot in there. Here are the materials on hand that were updated somewhat recently. I showed you guys this last time I was on this session. But now below those sections as well, the work item ledger, these are those three items that I had in the pay item spreadsheet. But now there's also this fiscal overview section. So we're still working on some of the details of how this displays. It's funding category here, and you can see we updated. This comes directly from that column I was showing you in that contract admin app. But the idea is now when this payment gets completed, the team can see, oh, we have X number of dollars paid this period to Spectrum Utilities or whatever that is. You can see in this example I've made, there's still some cleanup that needs to happen in that I have O3 reconstruction add there. I have O3. There's basically different spellings of the same codes. So there's little things like that that we need to clean up to make the table cleaner and easy for the fiscal team to know. And this table you're seeing is only on QA currently, so we'll activate it on a project by project basis after we get the contracts cleaned up, I guess, to include this information. So I'll be reaching out to many of you asking for some more info on what category number goes to X or Y pay items. And I guess I was told in prior conversations that this is going to be most relevant to the fiscal team when there's utilities work involved. That's why I was looking at this project specifically, because I saw it had lots of different utilities involved. So if you do have a specific project that maybe you've heard from the fiscal group that they need this information for your payments, maybe if you could directly reach out to me or Cord or Joel, we can get yours done first, basically. So a lot of these ongoing projects will need to have the contract updated, but we want to focus on the ones that are going to be most useful to the fiscal team to get that information added. For many of you, if I turned on this feature right now on your projects, you would probably just see a blank row like this rather than one of these categories, because I don't think, I think most of them do not have these categories in it currently. So that's why we need to get it added. That is there. And then this is, I just want to show you quick the PDF view of that same thing. We still have the full line item or pay item breakdown of each of those, but then it adds this fiscal overview section. I mean, it's the same info I was showing you, but more the PDF output of that. And this WBS level 2, that's something that's work breakdown structure. Basically, HeadLight has the ability to categorize the funding categories into different buckets. And so that's not really being used currently, but we're having further discussions on if we want to do that still. So it's a little bit of work in progress. This is what it should look like shortly, but I mostly want to make you all aware that I may be reaching out to many of you to get things set up properly to activate this. And let me know if your project is in particular need of that. Any questions on those funding categories or any of the other changes?
I'll add real quick on the funding category, because there may be a question or two that comes in on this. So the way that this gets kind of organized in the beginning is through the design phase. They take every pay item and categorize them into this WBS kind of, basically it's taking all of your payments relating to, certain code. In this case, on the screen here, you see 43 utilities. So basically every pay item that's associated with any utility is coded to that 43 level. So if you're just starting your project and you're unsure of where to find this information, what you'll do is request the bid tab. And I think typically you would go through the design coordinator for the project. I think every project usually has one. So just reach out to them and ask them for the bid tab. You could also go through the RE, but make sure you get that information and then you'll be able to populate.
Mm-hmm. I think I was told to, let me know if this is true, Joel, that non-federally funded ones might not always even have a funding category. Is that true?
Yes, I believe so. If
Okay.
it's purely state funds, so non-par, yeah, I think that is right.
Yeah. Looks like we got a hand up from Andrew.
Yeah, the funding categories are from Federal Highways list. Wouldn't it be good to have a pull-down menu of the funding categories
That is
to
exactly,
select?
yeah, that is exactly one of the things I wanted to discuss with Cord this week, but he's out. So we'll be getting that shortly just to ensure like you don't get these slightly different spellings of the same code. We are going to try to do that. I think there are cases, well, like in these cases where it references a specific utility company, we might still need some re-entry. So we need to work out the exact details, but the goal is to make it a standard kind of pick list if we can.
Or on that pick list, utilities in parentheses, which utility?
Yeah, maybe we can have a separate like field to clarify which utility. We need to work out the exact details, but that is the goal. Any other questions? I guess one other thing for you guys to know, I referenced it a little bit on that setup form. We have the field to put in the working days or calendar days. We're working to build the weekly statement of working days document that many of you have done separate from the progress payments. But as you may have noticed in the progress payments, there's, where'd it go? Let me go down. There's the working day section that kind of doesn't do anything yet. So the intention is to have it, the progress payment document, just recognize those weekly statement of working days and kind of summarize it. So we're trying to tie all those things together, hopefully make your lives easier in that these documents are kind of tied together and you can't make mistakes between them to different amounts of days. So that's to come probably on a future one of these sessions once we've got that built out. So that's all I had for the updates to progress payments or wanting to warn you all that I might be reaching out to update contract information. That shouldn't affect any of, like, we wouldn't be altering any of the other fields that are already in here, units, cost per unit, all that stuff. We're just, these kind of fields are behind the scenes and not doing anything currently. So we can update those without you noticing a change on the front end until the point that we turn on those fiscal overview tables.
We did have a question. Is it necessary for progress payments? Is this a requirement? The type codes, I think, / category
Well,
number.
yeah, I guess for the case where we just mentioned, if it's just state funded, it may not have that, in which case it would just show up as one of these lines that doesn't have one, which is fine, I think, if that's correct for your contract. But we do want to get this in there for all the contracts if at all possible. It won't, if we don't have all these filled out, it, like I said, it'll just kind of be a blank one in here. It won't alter how the individual pay items work or how it summarizes your this table at the top for the amount to pay. So it shouldn't block using payments at all if it's not set up correctly. It just we would like to have it consistent for the state, and like Andrew is saying, having that via drop downs might be very helpful too. So more to come. Keep doing what you're doing, basically, is the main message for now. And we'll reach out to try to get the rest of that set up, unless you've heard particular grumblings that you need that on your project, let me know otherwise. Let me look in the chat. I hadn't been looking there. Mhm. And there was a comment on category number being the type code. That is just what the entity in HeadLight is called. Like I said, we are helping maintain this contract information for now. We may be able to change these to be more specific to like the HDOT nomenclature for each thing here in the near future. This is just what it was called in the HeadLight system as a default to date.
Yeah, but confirming that is the same as type code, Francis.
Yeah, all the things you guys should see on in the documents themselves should be the correct nomenclature, hopefully. And this is kind of behind the scenes, but obviously over time we want HDOT to be able to do more and more of their own contract management, and some of these things would need to be changed for familiarity, of course. Okay. Open to any other questions. Doesn't even have to be payment related, but let me know.
Craig, what is the
Anybody?
purpose? What is the purpose for the fiscal section?
I believe that is purely just so that once the document is fully approved and you send it off to the fiscal group, they can hopefully look at this table and get a quick, I mean, I don't know how the payments work themselves, but they can see this utility company needs to be paid this much in a real quick way, as opposed to having to go through pay items and discern which is for which company kind of thing, I think. There might be other uses too, but that was the main reason, I believe.
Sounds good. Well, anyone have any other questions?
Any questions? I had two. I think we discussed it before, Craig. One is I was wondering if there's a way to print out, in the headlight view for project diaries.
Yep, I can go there.
Like for my YLI retrofit project, I have a bunch that our inspectors did not finish correcting yet. So I wanted to take a snapshot of auto diaries, where it has what was approved, what was submitted, but not revised yet.
I think I can show you that. How do you spell that project name again?
Well, the project number is NH-H1-1 with
Oh,
277 in parentheses.
that actually is harder for me to find it that way. What was the
Oh,
YLI? How do you?
YLI,
YLI
WAI.
viaduct, inbound and outbound.
There we go. We'll try
YLI
that.
viaduct.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. So you should find your diaries on this page, reports. I think one of the things you're looking for was being able to summarize which documents are approved or not.
Well, is there a way to print out the whole list of all the project diaries the way it is? Like when I see it in my view, the project reports are purple if I reviewed it already. And then you see the ones that are submitted, it wasn't corrected yet. Because if
yeah.
they revised it, then the purple would change back to blue, right?
Oh, you're just talking
But
about this link over here. It shows up purple if you've clicked it previously, and it shows up blue if you have not, I believe.
correct. So
That's what
I was
he's
wondering,
talking
is there a
about.
way to take a snapshot of the whole list of all the project diaries
Um,
in the
there's
color, the way it's
oh
showing?
yeah, there's not a great way to do that. One thing I have done actually that is a little bit hacky, but you can do is you can always scroll down your whole list and like copy and paste it into an Excel sheet or something. Like it gets all these different columns of the title, date, author. So that's one thing I've done, but there's not like an export list of reports. Oops, I stopped sharing. Sorry about that. I'm going to go to 1 second. Oh yeah, that didn't actually go how I'd hoped it would either. So I think there's not a great way to do exactly what you're talking about. One
Yeah, I
thing,
tried.
yeah, sorry about that. But one thing I've always done is like if I'm looking for just submitted ones as an example to get a more concise list of what ones still need work, or you can search by specific users. Like if I just want to see all of them by yourself, there's only 9. So like that can give you a view of it, but it's not like I mean, that's a good addition would be export the report list. I'll write that down.
'Cause I'd like to see a snapshot because, oh, and I had sent you the list of all those with errors or whatever, or the inspector said they made the corrections, but it's not showing when I download the reports. I don't know if you had the chance to take a look at that yet.
No. How about I find that and do it right after this?
Okay. Okay. The second
I'll
topic, I
give
mean,
you
I
a
don't want
call
to
if
take up,
I'm confused. Yeah.
okay. Anyway, the second topic, I don't want to take up if somebody else has a question, but for sample cards for the forms,
Mm-hmm.
I think we discussed this before too. If you go to the sample cards,
Yes.
forms, um,
Like this one.
yeah, so whereas the inspector submits it or it gets approved, if you scroll down, each inspector might put it a different way or whatever. Some I
Mm-hmm.
was able to change the title and put the JC card number and what
Mm.
material that was. Some I cannot. It's locked. It's but is there a way to have the engineers be able to change the title even after it's approved or submitted or whatever, just so that we have a visible way to see which JC card is what sample card number and the title because it gets locked.
Yeah. If once they go to approved, nobody will be able to alter them unless
Yeah.
you can't always see in the history here who approved it. So Jimmy would have to reject it if you guys wanted to change it,
Oh, that's
including the
hard. You
title.
don't you don't want that to happen. Once they approve
That's
it,
what
you want
I
it locked as approved. But the part is for the engineers, the project engineers, it's harder to keep track of everything where you're looking at the list and it's all different information or no information, and you got to open it up just to take a look.
mhm. The trying to open up the JC card dashboard. So there is the dashboard, which is a separate view. So you have to go to home.headlight.com to get to that, but you should have access to that also. And I guess the easiest answer or the simplest thing for, oh, I lost my tabs, sorry. So obviously working with your inspectors and asking them to put all that in correct from the beginning is the easiest first step, of course. I know that won't always happen. But I
First.
believe once it's in submitted status, you should still be able to edit the title, but you would have to do that before Jimmy or somebody approved it. So that's the hard part, is you have to be quicker than them. That being
Oh, and
said, oh, go ahead.
sometimes there are some that definitely cannot, like Craig's one or whatever. But
Oh,
okay, as an alternative, would you be able to stick in a column of comments?
just a place you can comment on one regardless of
Oh,
their status, do you mean?
correct.
Yes, that I believe that may be possible. I'll have to ask about that.
Because in
Uh,
CPMS, we used to be able to track the status. Like, say, this JC card number 109 supersedes number 77 and
mhm,
35 for some type of submittal, like maybe rebars or something, or epoxy or something. But you can put the comment, so you have when you see the JC card, you can put the JC card number, the type of material, and that it superseded previous JC cards.
mhm. Okay. There is, yeah, the reason I wanted to show this dashboard is it does show a little bit more information than that forms tab in Fieldbook, because it will have your sample number and it has the specific material indicated as well. There is a Highway L remarks column, which I don't think would quite do what you're asking, because you want your engineering team to be able to comment, it sounds like. And this only, Mhm.
If the project engineers were to manage or whatever, see what's happening with the materials, good to have that column where you can see it on that same form description thing.
Mhm.
Because like the one you have here, I mean, it looks nice and neat, and I guess the inspector was very thorough when they listed what they're putting down and consistent. But when you have
Yeah.
different inspectors popping in and out, assisting on a project, that may not happen. If
Mhm.
they're not that familiar with HeadLight, they may make errors, and then, so forth. But if you add another column, like next to, or we could insert a column or comments, like somewhere
Mhm.
between status info and actionable or whatever,
Yeah.
then maybe, you can use that column for that corrected information to track the status.
Yeah. Let me ask what we can do for that. One thing to note that might be possible too, for like your project in particular, like if you have a bunch of these that need name changes but they're locked, we may be able to like do a bulk name change on your project if you had like a spreadsheet of this JC 469, please rename this to this. Like if we might be able to help manage that on the back end in the database if needed, but like you're saying, that's probably not the best move for you guys to be able to maintain
I
them
think
yourselves.
something where the project engineer can put something down, then we can put the comments, like if it superseded some other JCs, or if there was a specific um, condition that happened, like say the inspector submitted the sample card and a month and a half later they had to resubmit it because maybe instead of Oahu lab, it went to the Big Island lab, which one of our inspectors found out. He didn't
Oh,
know he clicked the wrong lab, so
uh-oh.
and then he had to resubmit it. But then the resubmitted sample card, it just looks like, what happened? Why did you submit it so late?
Oh yeah.
And then the sample got lost.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds confusing. Okay, no, that's
But
good feedback. We'll see if we can add something where you can add more context that is viewable within Fieldbook.
Yeah, because under CPMS, the old program we had, the database at the field offices was it was local for the field office, and we could do that. So that helped with the um, when we submitted the information to lab at the end, where
Hmm.
you have every sample card accounted for, the ones that were rejected and then superseded, the one that, special conditions,
Mhm.
maybe it was submitted, approved, but then no samples were, well, no product was used. So we could explain to lab, or maybe something was rejected, but then that product wasn't used anyway. You had several alternatives and something else, one of the approved ones was used.
Mhm.
And you could note those things to the lab so they know what happened. Otherwise, they would, without knowing that, they might just ask, oh, we never got samples for this that was approved. Where's the
Mm.
samples?
Yeah. Another thing we are working on, or working on testing or trying out, is what we call a sample plan within HeadLight. Uh, so we're trying to set up an example project to show to HDOT. But basically, we have in HeadLight built out what we call the comprehensive sample plan, where you can see based on each and every pay item what materials and what necessary tests, and hopefully that would really solve a lot of what you're talking about. You'd be able to see, I'm supposed to have 8 tests for this material. We've done 6. 3 of them are accepted, 2 are pending, that kind of thing.
Not a subject to separate. Like I was talking to one of my inspectors, and say you have a sampling guide to follow on concrete samples. Well, what happens if the supervisor inspector says don't need, or the RE says don't need to take the sample?
Mhm.
Inspector's going to follow one of the bosses, and then the project engineer might ask, "Oh, but you're supposed to have taken a sample." Oh, I was
Mhm.
told don't need to, and I heard different offices might be doing something different. So would something like what you just suggested, would that help? Like maybe because the thing is they might not see it when they're in the field. Oh, this one you should take a sample
Mhm.
because they might be busy and then they didn't see it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all different types of conditions, and yeah, that's why in the old days the sampling was based on to the best of their knowledge, and they tried to get whatever samples they could, but sometimes it's hard to get everything what
Yeah.
somebody else expects.
Well, I think what our vision is will help with that somewhat. I think the goal is we get the original contract at the beginning of the project that shows the exact quantities, and that ties to specific materials, and we know the frequencies. And hopefully that can even allow those field inspectors to see and know more often when they're supposed to take different samples. Like if you know you're going to concrete paving, you could pull up those pay items in HeadLight and see, oh yeah, we've done 3 samples. We probably have to do another today. So easier said than done. We'll have to test it on some projects and see how it works. And I believe there's also ways to note like sample not taken because of X, Y, or Z. It's not like it forces you to have a sample. There's always exceptions for one reason or another. But this is all
Thank you, Craig.
yeah. All right. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, you guys can always reach out if you have anything else to either Craig or myself, and we'll work to get you answers.
Mhm. Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Craig. As always, informative. And thank you, everyone. We'll let you have your mornings back.
Thanks, Joel.
Hey, great training. Mahalo, guys.
Mhm.